I'm recording. I mean, I'm editing later.
I'm only saying that because we're still in country. We just finished a huge operation. It's been about 2.5 years in the making. And we're just we just finished it, been hiding out, and now we're heading home. But first, I want to thank you on your, I don't know if it was one of your last podcasts, for explaining to people, like the Blaze, my good friend Glenn Beck, who clearly wants to be so fair. Okay, I don't know how much he has to do with in the headlines that Tim Ballard's DNA, according to the court document. I just want to make something clear that you made clear before. I could say that you were leaving dogs in your backyard, and I could submit to the court, and I could call that a court document. So the headline says, according to court documents, Tim's DNA is all over the skirt. So it sounds so official. And then, no one bothers to explain to people. Anyone can make up a court document. I could file anything against anyone and say anything I want. And all these trolls who follow and say, just go read the filing. You got to understand, these women all got together. I know this for a fact. And they just repeated each other's lies. So it sounds consistent. But anyway, just because something says court documents means absolutely nothing. DNA, if you understand how we operate, but we can get into that later.
Right.
But I just want to thank you for
absolutely
pointing out so many things to people who just don't understand. But this operation, man, was especially, it was probably the most dangerous one, and it has to do with the lawsuit. I can't get into the specifics and give away tactics, but there was only one possible way to find this trafficker, and I used an actress. We used actresses on purpose, and she was phenomenal in the operation. In fact, we have her given the debrief on location. Luckily, somebody filmed it, where she's all excited because we identified the children. Okay, 2.5 years later, she's pounding her fist, saying her name's Sasha. She's revealed her name, so I'll reveal it. She pounds, this has to stop. It was all fake. So I could hold her hand, because I want to hold her hand so much because she's so hot. I just can't. I just had to go through this whole thing so I could hold her hand. So anyway, this is the sad part of the operation. It was the good news is 2 traffickers arrested, 14 kids pulled out. The youngest was 12. Just think about that. And he was a 12-year-old. Think how young that is.
Yeah.
But here's the sad part. This was a major player in the cartel. That's why this was very dangerous. And there's hooks into Baja California, into Cancun. And the Mexicans were working this case for 2.5 years, right? But she comes and files lawsuit and reveals all the details. Okay? She reveals all the details. And so I had experts come say, Tim, you got to drop this case. This is way too dangerous. But we had to. We couldn't wait and rescue what probably would have been more like 50 kids if we had been able to finish the operation. But we couldn't because all the details were out. So we had to get in there before the trafficker happened upon, the filing, right? So those children who will never be found and will have a life of rape is 100% blood on the hands of Alan Mortensen, Rasmussen, and Sasha. And it's total betrayal to the country of Mexico. It's betrayal to our operation, and it made it especially dangerous for us because, it was all out there.
Right.
But we did it anyway, and it was successful. But I just don't think people realize how much these lawsuits are hurting kids. It's giving away tactics. It's shut down the whole adoption process. 26 kids will never be adopted because we had to use that lawsuit money, that money that would have adopted kids to fight these legal battles. we're in the millions of dollars now. Okay, and so again, if you guys want to help to the defense fund, please do.
Yeah, the family. He's talking about the Family Ballard Defense Fund. That doesn't go to Tim and Catherine. That goes directly to their attorneys to help with legal fees. And you can find that. I'll stick that at the end of this.
But I got one operator. You can have the blur space.
Yeah, that's fine.
He was here. He was here the whole time. I'm not going to say his name. I'll call him Pedro.
No, I'll even change his voice. I'll even change his voice.
Huh?
I'll blur his face and change his voice.
All right. So how do you feel, Pedro, about the fact that this woman, for money, and she doesn't even allege anything more than that I held her hand and my hand on her leg. I probably did because we're driving around in taxis that are owned by the cartel. Like, you're enrolled the whole time, right? So for holding her hand in Mexico, she deserves millions of dollars, apparently. But all these kids will not be rescued. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, to be quite frank, if I just had to say one thing, if there's a special place in hell for women, they have, and they're doing this knowingly, they have impeded the rescue of dozens and dozens. I could even go as far to say hundreds over the past year of kids. I mean, operations have completely halted on many fronts. Operations I was part of, I worked a lot in Central and South America, and a lot of funding was diverted, as Tim was saying, to legal battles. A lot of attention was diverted where we had ongoing cases where the actual bad guys, the actual traffickers, found out that not necessarily whose faces they were, but that there was undercover operators working those cases. So they changed their tactics. They moved the children to other places, to other cartels, and those children will never be found. So quite frankly, like I said, there's a special rotten place for these women. And it's very offensive to God's work. It's offensive to the operators that have gone out for the past, over a decade now, since Tim started his first foundation, and all the hard work and all the sacrifices that we've had to make being away from families and being in danger, all so that these women can, make a few dollars at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I want to reiterate this. The statement that came out by a representative of the church saying that I used Elder Ballard's name to convince these women. First of all, we were cutting them. They were dying to get on operations. One of them, I mean, there's so much I want to say, but we're saving it for court. But
yeah,
imagine you were raped, and then the next day you texted the guy, say, "Hey, how are you? When am I going to see you again?" And then the next day after that, calls the recruiter for the team, who's my right-hand man, who's here with us, and says, "Hey, when are you going to train me? I got to get this done and that done." That's unlike someone who just got raped.
No.
Reporting it 2 years later, okay? I'm telling you, there will be a day in this life or the next where they get to see all the kids whose suffering is immense. One in particular who's hiding behind an acronym because she knows that her and I went in, and I can talk about this one because look, we got this trafficker locked up. But I mean, there is no way, and she'd be on the stand. She couldn't lie that much. I don't think she couldn't. She'd have to admit it because too many people were there. The only way we infiltrated was together. The whole point of this is, funny enough, is to not engage in sex. If I wanted sex, Troy, guess what? I wouldn't hire any contractor. I would just go down and have as much sex as I want with these beautiful prostitutes.
Yeah.
And get my intel.
You don't need to go to you mean you don't need to go to South America with 20 people to flirt with somebody, right?
Right. The whole point is to not engage in sexual activity. But hey, people ask the question, how many people would lick a toilet bowl for $1,000? And probably more people than you'd want to admit would do that. But every time I think about the 14 that we just rescued, I just know there's probably 50 more that would have been rescued had Sasha not come out, banging her fist all dramatically. This has to stop. What has to stop? The only thing that stopped was rescuing children. So I don't know how you live with that, even if you end up winning millions of dollars. The good news is we've won every single battle in court. 3 dismissals so far. We just got a 3rd dismissal yesterday.
Yeah, I heard the news. Congratulations, brother.
And you know what that one was about? This girl, Whitehead, Suzanne Whitehead, and she was disparaging and defaming us online. She has a little foundation in Utah called I can't remember the name of it. Clearly jealous because OUR was, making like 1,000 times what she was making, and so she was just trying to take us down. I sent her it was a very nice email. I said, "Look, do you want to sit down?" I never even met her. I just said, "Want to sit down and ask questions? I can explain to you. It doesn't cost $50,000 to a kid. Oh yeah, it can cost up to $150. We don't just walk in and take these kids out of traffickers. We take down a whole trafficking ring. That means multiple trips. That means surveillance equipment. That means multiple contractors who are working. Most contractors would charge you about $1,000 a day. The ones we need, they do it for $300 a day. But even that adds up, right? So to take down a trafficking ring is not, and how she explains it is because she's apparently an expert in rescuing. It only costs it should only cost a cost of 1 plane ticket. That's complete bullcrap. You're going up against cartels who are selling human beings.
I've looked at this and it adds up, folks. It adds up. I mean, you have to have money to schmooze with for a while, even. And if that's buying dinner and drinks for people that are on the opposite end of things, alcohol for the bad guys, you're pretending to be a player. You've got airline tickets for everybody going over there. You've got Airbnbs that you have to get. You've got all the red tape you have to pay for. It goes on and on, right? That's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely. It's very expensive to do operations. Anywhere from $30,000 up to $120,000, depending. And it's so offensive. The one who's he's hiding behind the acronym. She doesn't remember this, or she will. I hope they all listen to this. The day or two before she sued, he sat down with a mutual friend, and they said, "Would you do it all over again?" She said, "Absolutely," because we rescued kids. And she was crying, and she's like, "Well, why are you doing this?" "Well, I believe the other girls, so I just I have to do this." And then she makes up these stories. I have strict rules. Sometimes we have to go into these bad places, right? Like we say, we don't rescue kids in hospitals and schools, right? They're in the basement of massage parlors or brothels. And so there's times when we have to go in pretending to be a couple, get the intel without having any sexual contact. And there's ways to do that because we're very creative. We have rules. One of the rules is you keep your clothes on. You don't get naked. Well, she comes out during one of these cases in a certain country and when all this comes out, people realize these countries are offended. Their ops got shut down. She comes out with her top off, shocked the heck out of me. I'm like, "What are you doing?" But I can't say anything in the moment. So we go we get the intel we need. I don't touch her. I don't, we have different methods we use, so you don't have to do any touching. And then she puts in this is an example. And then she puts in the lawsuit. Tim had me break his own rule by having me come out with my top off. And she knows, damn well. She's like, "Sorry, I just felt like in that moment, it would have been more convincing if I came out with my shirt on." I'm like, "All right, I'm not going to fire you over that." My wife says, "Yeah, you should have fired her." But she felt like she needed to do that. But she puts it on me. That's how completely made up out of home. The worst one is that they all I was very close friends with President M. Russell Ballard. Very close. And this is a sensitive topic, but I'm gonna go here with you right now. like so close. We took trips together. I was at his house. He would call me. I saw him probably once or twice a month. And I'll ask this guy, and Coop, you'll be talking a little later. How close of a relationship did I have with Sam Russell Ballard?
I think it's close as his own kids, maybe even closer.
That's the truth, okay? So these women all knew that, and so a convenient lie, because they want to act like I spiritually manipulated them, is they got together and they said, hey, let's all say that Tim used Elder Ballard's name to get us to do this. Okay, first of all, how hard was it, Matt, to get them to do this? Did we have to convince them?
No, they volunteered.
They'd show up to us. I didn't have to convince anyone. And what a stupid lie, anyway. And you got to be a total idiot to believe that. You know, if their story is true. The church put a statement out saying that I betrayed my friendship with Elder Ballard. It's the most offensive thing that's happened. I say the church. I don't know what that means. People inside, they came out and said that I betrayed my friendship with Elder Ballard, and used his name. And the only solace I have is that I know he's on the other side and knows the truth. That never, ever did I talk specifics with him about how we do operations. I wouldn't want him to even know that, right? Because I've never even had a conversation with him about it. He never authorized it, and I never said he authorized it. So the fact that someone representing the church would say something that is not true, and then disseminate it to Vice magazine and Deseret book, Deseret and other places that they own, networks, that's really bad.
That is bad.
That's really, really, really bad. I know that they don't know that. All they know is that a handful of women said that. Of course they did. If you think about it, it's the most convenient lie to try to make me look bad. And I will never confess something. And I have this great bishop, and I said, Bishop, I'm not going to confess something I didn't do. I will never do it. I'll go to my grave first. And can you imagine, even if I had, Troy, even if I had done these things, how did Jesus treat the adulterer?
Not like this.
He read an article in the Jerusalem Times saying, hey, guess what? I came across an adulterer and she's immoral. I mean, what would Jesus do?
Well, exactly. I mean, we understand how the other side operates. That's a given, right? Vice News, the other side, they're not gonna be Christ-like. What surprised me and what concerned me was, if we go back to the times of Joseph Smith, how many times was he arrested and found innocent? 60-something times. The church didn't distance themselves from the prophet at that time when he was being arrested and found innocent.
Well, sometimes they did. If you know the history, sometimes.
Yeah,
well, did. That's why
true.
Why I would never say the church. I would just say people inside the church.
Exactly.
Because there's no way there's leadership. I guarantee you, put my life on it. In fact, I know for a fact, because I've talked to some who knows that was wrong. Even if I had done it, to go out to the public, they did it, I think, because the headline would have been Elder Ballard accused of pimping out women or whatever.
Right.
So instead, I guess better that that one man perished and his family.
Yeah.
Than a whole nation. Blah blah blah. I don't know if that's the excuse, but of all the offenses, that's the one that's hurt the most. Is I did not say that. I've never come close to saying that. And that anyone inside of my church that I love and I still believe in, and I still go with my family and I still participate, and I still defend, everybody knows that was wrong.
Yeah.
There's no one that would say, oh, that was the right thing. That's what Jesus would do. He'd go put an article out in the Jerusalem Times and say, hey, guess what? I found someone who's unworthy, or what they say, I committed an immoral act. Okay. Now we can jump over to another case that's really interesting. This case of Kelly Suarez.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to mention that real quick. There's a documentary that came out with I've got a cameo in it. So I'm getting famous right now.
Oh yeah.
Janet.
Red pill, like red pill
Yeah.
or something.
And it's so preposterous. I mean, and I let my audience.
Guess how many times Red Pill America came to us and said, "Hey, what kind of comment do you have about this Kelly Suarez?" About just many times.
Right.
They didn't care about the truth. Just like when that statement came out, how many times was I questioned about, "Hey, these women are saying X, Y, and Z about you. What do you have to say?" Not one time
No.
was I questioned by any church authority.
Right.
Before that statement came out. So does that sound like someone looking for truth?
No, not at all.
Or does that sound like a PR move?
It's very much a PR move.
That statement's not going to age well, and that documentary that you're in is going to age even worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they don't know what we have. We have video documentation that we still haven't revealed. This woman sat with the traffickers, sold us kids. She argued for her percentage of the child sex hotel. The prosecutor's just laughing. The 4 other traffickers that were arrested with her are trying to plead guilty so to get less time. But Mortensen and Rasmussen got to her and said, "Hey, you're going to make millions." My prediction is at the end of this, these women are going to turn on their attorneys because Celeste already owes me $20,000. Yeah, just know there's so much stuff that our site hasn't put out yet.
Okay.
For strategic reasons, but it's just crazy. So this woman Kelly Suarez, who was selling children, I have multiple witnesses, including the Attorney General of Utah. Ironically, he was standing right there listening. We have video of him retelling the story about her selling kids. So, but Red Pill, that documentary, how come they didn't come ask for it? We would have given it to them. We've already dispersed some of the material out to some of the local Utah news, and I think they might have played a little bit of it, but not even all of it, because the more sensational story is the rise and fall of Tim Ballard is much more exciting than
of course,
selling children. These are real kids, and more to come on this, but I hesitate to. I'm going to probably save it, but they've gone to some of the rescued kids and tried to get the kids who I rescued.
And Pedro,
and they won't do it.
Pedro was one of them, and if you guys don't know, Pedro was in the movie Sound of Freedom. Well, not Pedro, but there was an actor that portrayed Pedro, and he was the little boy on the island. What did they call him?
Simba.
That was real, but folks, and this Red Pill is coming out and saying that because he said one day, he meant he had met Suarez. He had only known her for a day, right?
Right, and so therefore he wasn't really trafficked.
Right.
And look, the whole thing is this: law enforcement is stuck in a situation that's compromising all the time. Like, I've been online. I spent 20 years doing this, right? So I'm online with a chat group of pedophiles, and one of them says, "I got 2 5-year-olds that I've been raping, and I'll sell them to you for the weekend." Now, you're law enforcement. You got to make a choice. You can say to yourself, "Well, does he really have 2 5-year-olds? What if he doesn't? What if he goes and kidnaps 2 5-year-olds just to appease me?" So what do? You cancel the op. We can't control how they recruit these kids. We can't control how they recruit them, right? They don't give away their secrets.
Right.
But the point is this: I didn't solicit Kelly Suarez. She solicited me. I was along with the other traffickers who, again, I'll remind you, are pleading guilty. They're trying to plead guilty right now. Suarez is the only one who's not pleading guilty because she's been promised millions of dollars because they're going to win.
Right. And she's an
Not gonna
opportunist. She's an opportunist. An attorney went over there and said, wink, wink, you weren't trafficked. You're a victim, or you weren't trafficking anyone. You're a victim, right?
Right.
And she's like, oh, yeah,
Exactly.
let's go with that.
Exactly. But what they don't know, again, is that we have more video footage than anyone wants to put out because it hurts the narrative that they're trying to peddle. But the bottom line is, this kid's life is we've had to move him like 3 different times because this is the cartel, and this woman came out and she's on bond right now, right? And in Colombia, you can only serve a year and a half, even if you kill 10 babies. If you haven't had a trial, you're out on bond. That's just the law, right? So she comes out and starts revealing the name of Pedro, and then they get his address. So he's got a daughter that he adopted from a victim of trafficking, convinced her not to kill herself because he would adopt the baby, and he did. And he wouldn't. And he stood by me when he didn't have to. There's more to the story that that we're saving that
Right.
will blow your mind.
Big interview, folks. Big
right now.
And more to come.
Yeah, there's more to come on Pedro that we're waiting to release. But this poor guy is scared to death. I mean, this woman who is criminal, it's a criminal organization, right? We've had to move him around because he's scared to death for his life. But let's explain how this all happened. The Fiscalia, that's the prosecution of Colombia, asked me and my team to go sit on this beach called Playa Blanca and La Isla Barú, these islands of Cartagena. Thank the Lord that we filmed everything. So we actually film him with undercover cameras. This guy named Fuego, who appears in the film as well. He's one of the ones he's trying to plead guilty right now because he knows he's guilty. He walks up to me and says, I got kids for sale as young as 11 and 12 years old. If you guys are interested. Just go to this because they told us that's what they had heard was happening, but they never had the resources to go out there and have American faces to pretend to be tourists. So they solicited me. I didn't solicit them. I didn't go up to Kelly Suarez and say, hey, here's a suitcase full of money. Will you go find kids for me?
Right.
They come to me. So I go back to the Colombians and say, here you go. Here's the footage. What do you want us to do? Oh my gosh. So they start working the case. And then I passed him off to one of the, my guy in Colombia, who's actually an undercover cop. And then he calls me, says, hey, I need you to come down. Very dangerous. Or we're going to go into the house of the boss of Fuego. So, and by the way, this whole thing's a documentary called Triple Take, which we can't wait to put out, but that's strategic because the story is continuing. So all the new stuff's going to be in it. So I show up at the house, and that's where I meet Kelly Suarez. I didn't pick her up off the street. She showed up, and she said, hey, I got a 12-year-old for I think $1,000. A 12-year-old, and I said, great. That's what you got. Okay, this is all on video, right? You think that'd be important that the Red Pill documentary included this?
Right.
I'm pretty sure we gave this video to Fox 13 Utah, but they want me to be the bad guy. I mean, again, and the other thing, dictator of Colombia, I don't make choices. I don't decide who gets charged and who doesn't. All I do is collect evidence, me and my team, and we turn over that evidence. And as you hear the story, how it progresses, they solicit me. Then the Colombians ask me to go into this place where I'm going to be introduced, according to the trafficker, to other traffickers. And he introduces Kelly Suarez to me, saying she's one of the traffickers, and she's showed up in all these like sexy videos, and she was Miss Cartagena, and so she can recruit people. And then she offers me a kid. And then I have another video of her doing it in a restaurant.
So are you saying that footage will be available soon? in the future?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We've already turned over some of it, but the news does very little with it because it doesn't fit the narrative, right? They want
Right.
to put out there. So it's station. I asked one of the traffickers, whose name is Samuel, who again he's trying to plead guilty because he knows he is. I said, "Can we do anything with these kids? I mean, these are young kids, and can we do anything with them?" And he says, "Well, yeah, but you know, the youngest ones try to be." And then Kelly comes in and says, "Delicada." So we're to be delicate with them. And so she finishes the sentence. But in context, clearly we're talking about children because she's answering a question about
Right.
how to rape little babies. Well, she knew that footage was out there because we used it in her court case. And she said, "No, I was talking about me. That if you want to have sex with me, be delicate."
Oh.
Like, are you kidding me? You know the question was about little children. Anyway, and then there's more footage at the island where they're talking about how much money that they're going to all make on the child sex hotel. And she's arguing for like whatever, 20%, blah, blah, blah. The prosecutor can't believe this. So Mortensen and Rasmussen, who are representing all these women, they go down there. He actually says one of the most defamatory things, which, believe me, there'll be consequences when this all comes out, and says, ironically, the true trafficker was Tim Ballard. How is that possible? The story I just told you that's backed by video footage, right? I'm the
Right.
trafficker, it says. And so she's all excited. We're talking to the prosecutor. The prosecutor's laughing. She's just like, "This is like the most like easy case because you guys filmed everything. Usually we have to rely on testimony of a Colombian cop or something, but we have testimony and video footage. I mean, it's an absolute joke." So in Colombia, they're down there trying to make her this martyr. I'm telling you what, that story's not going to age well at all. And this is all being masterminded by you know, these two attorneys from Utah who are trying to take down the foundation that I built. They want all that money. I was in Ecuador because we're building a task force, aerial recovery, and we're going to build a task force. And I went to speak, and two private investigators from Utah showed up at my event. They flew all the way to Ecuador to try to catch me in some lie. But we caught them. The police caught them and kicked them out. I mean, that's how far they're going here. They're putting everything out there. But like I said, they've lost every battle in court so far. I think we have a few more dismissals, and not only are they getting dismissed, but two of them have to pay. My guess is,
what does that tell you, folks? What does that tell you?
Yeah, the judge has ordered the women to pay me and to pay OUR because the lies were that bad, and that's going to continue to happen. My prediction is that these girls are going to turn on their attorneys and say, "You promised us $1 million," and instead they're losing everything. Because believe me, there's a lot of lawsuits that are about to. We're sitting back. Lawsuits are coming, and there's going to be a lot of them. And our lawsuits are actually going to be backed by facts, by video. You know, these people who keep saying, "I read the filings. I know he's guilty." What are you talking about? You read a novel that somebody wrote.
Right.
You can write anything in there.
Yep.
Anyway, those are some of my thoughts right now.
That's called you know, I was looking that up the other night, but that's called paltering. When somebody uses the truth and then changes it, creates a misleading narrative or statement, and that's what these women are doing. They're paltering. They're taking the truth and then they distort it and create it into something else, just like Suarez. So you guys are coming back from an operation now, right? And you've been working, right, Tim? I know you don't want to expose too much game, but can you expound on that a little bit?
About our operation?
Yeah. Did you want to talk about what you've been doing a little bit? You don't have to say where you've been, give up cover, but
Yeah, look, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm about to go bankrupt. I've been smeared. I've been lied about by the good guys, and I'm not stopping. We're doing more operations now than ever before. Truly, follow me. Follow me on Instagram, Tim Ballard-89. Look at all the work we've done. In the last month alone, how many ops have we done? I think 16 or something. I haven't even been able to report on all of them. So all I can do is say, God, I don't know why this is happening, but if this is a test, it's not going to stop me. We're gonna continue rescuing kids, and I'm doing it at a rate faster than I ever have in my life. We're getting support, and it's really sick. At the end of the day, these women in Rasmussen and Mortensen will be known as at best accomplices child trafficking. But when all the truth comes out, and they're gonna have to live with that.
Amen.
And this is all for money. Because I know the truth. I know the evidence. It kills me. I'm like, please, can we put this out? Please, can we put this? And my attorney's like, no. Be strategic. Wait. You've been through it with me. I told you.
Are
Are
you mimicking me?
But we can't. They're strategic. Hey, I want you to talk to one of my other operators here.
Yeah, let's do it.
He was with me. I've never ever done an operation. My wife won't let me do an operation without Matt Cooper being with me. He's also been sued. The person who accused him of sexual assault, her case was dismissed. So, and she said things that were public that were lies. I just can't wait till, the offense kicks in, which it hasn't. We're being strategic. But Matt, how do you feel about all this and these girls and these women? Take the phone.
Yeah.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, Troy. Yeah, like I said earlier, these women volunteered. They came to us and asked to be operators and all that. I mean, if it ever gets to court, we'll come out. As Tim said, we're continuing to move forward to do the good work that we're doing. We're not going to let lawfare or the Matrix or whoever's behind us, attacking us, stop us from doing, what we do. I mean, we don't care. My philosophy is life. No matter what I do, life ends in death. So I'm not going to let, the pressures of life stop me from living and doing, what I'm here on this planet to do. So,
by the way, I have a question for Matt. So the woman who accused you of sexual assault, don't you have some text messages from her, like right after the assault happened? And what's it?
I do. I mean, I don't know how much because as to me, Tim was dismissed for whatever reason. My attorneys got in late in the game and they weren't part of that hearing, but there will be soon a hearing. I'm very confident, but I have many text messages where she actually is very complimentary of me and my conduct and how much she liked working with me and all that stuff. I'm not worried about it.
She even texted somebody else, which she clearly doesn't remember. I won't say the name. And she said, Matt Cooper was such a gentleman. He kept all the rules. It was an excellent op.
Yeah.
Right? We have these texts, like contemporaneous to the quote unquote sex assault. And then, years pass and they all get together and say, hey, let's make up this story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen some of that. And Matt, it's good to finally meet you. I mean, you've been this Pulp Fiction in my mind. I hear about you from other people that we know mutually. I'm always hearing Matt Cooper dropped somewhere in a story, and they're not legends. They're real, actual things that have happened. Real children rescued, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of been my MO. I've just kind of been in the background. I mean, I do a lot but I've been less in the spotlight. I mean, Tim's so good at the spotlight, I just let him get it. So,
That's right. God bless you, brother. Keep
Thank you.
going. I know you guys are still doing the work. I'm not going to expose game and say where you've been and what you've been doing, but put it this way, brothers and sisters. Operation Underground, or sorry, let me scratch that, reverse that. Sound of Freedom is a real deal. Okay. And these
100%. I was there.
These are living, breathing operators that do God's work.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Do I have to blur your face? I hope not, because you're so handsome.
No, you don't have to blur.
Okay, okay.
Just blur Pedro's.
Yeah, I will.
I've already been. So anyway, yeah, you can see, Troy, the defense. Every single group, institution, person, plaintiff who has made these negative comments is hurting kids. And that's the part that blows my mind. When you lie about somebody, when you say they did something they didn't do, when it comes to saving kids, less kids get rescued. You understand that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That blows my mind. That's what, when certain institutions or people or media come out and say things that they know they don't know, but they're going to do it anyway, and kids get hurt. I just hope that I get to be a fly on the wall on the other side, and the video gets to be played, and they get to see all the kids who were never rescued because they chose to try to protect their image, or they chose money, or they chose something else, and showed a complete lack of integrity. And they did it because that's all this is doing is hurting kids. Now, I believe in God. I believe that God has a way to. I believe in commensurate kind of blessings, so this could all turn net positive, and that's my hope. I've posted it. It's all over the Mexican news that we took down this trafficking ring, but I know how much bigger it was, and I know all those other kids are now gone. They'll be traded to other cartels. They'll be passed off, and that's all thanks to Sasha for revealing things and betraying not only me. The Mexicans want to put them under investigation. I've heard talks of it several times for obstructing justice, because they welcome them into the country to help us rescue their kids, and then they do this. I mean, that's obstruction of justice.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Not only will these things be dropped, and they are dropping like flies as we speak, folks, but this can also harm them legally in all these other countries. Once these countries find out that these claims are being dropped, the government might turn against them and go, look, you guys caused a lot of problems.
Oh, absolutely. There is a case. The one girl who swore she wasn't going to sue, she only did it because she believed somebody else. We were tight like brother and sister. Breaks my heart. And she reveals my name. She outs me to the traffickers. This was an ongoing case. So my undercover name, Brian, she reveals in the filing that it's me. And this is cartel. I mean, these guys they could easily find my family, my kids.
Right.
But she's safe because she's hiding behind an acronym, and I'm not going to stoop to her level and reveal who she is.
She might as well have just put a hit on you. She might as well have just put a hit on you.
100%. All of them. Sasha, this other one, Celeste. I'll name the ones who've come out. Only 3 of them actually went on ops. Only 3 of the plaintiffs. The others were cut. And we have the texts that show how they were cut. Hey, so sorry. And they just weren't very good at this or that. Only 3 of them went on ops, and all 3 of them resulted in rescues or arrests. In the case of Celeste, we were working a huge case with the U.S. federal government that had to do with trafficking of North Korean girls.
Right.
We have an entire podcast that we haven't aired yet where Celeste is talking about being in the undercover operation and trying to hold back her tears as she's listening to this girl from North Korea. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, that podcast is out there. We're going to put out the whole thing eventually. And we have written statements from you saying I did nothing inappropriate ever to you. It's crazy to me that that people were able to influence them. But the problem is all they're getting is so far as dismissals and having to pay money. They're going to lose money at the end of this. Everybody's going to lose. At the end of this, everybody is going to lose. We've lost our ability to rescue all the kids. They aren't going to get the money. They're going to end up having to dish out money and legal fees and rulings like they already have. Again, Celeste owes me $20,000, and then this other one that just got dismissed is going to owe something as well. I mean,
that she's lucky. She's lucky. It's only $20,000. That's.
It should have been higher, but don't worry, I haven't begun my lawsuit yet.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
This woman went in and stole all my emails, which had nothing incriminating in them anyway. So I don't know what the point was, and published them. And then she admits it. She admits to doing it in a deposition. And wow, that's going to be a tough lawsuit to win. Are you kidding me? Like, it's like she's trying to say, well, I had access to your email. Well, yeah, because you were helping me. She was an operator I said, help me track my emails. I mean, you know how hard it is to get a hold of me just doing these interviews. And so her argument is akin to like saying, like, your housekeeper has a key to your house, in your house, and then she steals your phones, all your money, your safe, and then says, well, I had the key to your house, therefore that gave me the right to take anything I wanted from your house. That's the only argument they can make.
Right.
So that's a criminal investigation of theft. That's a lawsuit that's going to be easy to win. It's there's a scripture that says, Tom Harrison, Visions of Glory.
Yes.
He's gotten beat up.
He's spoken a lot at the where we're going to speak in October at the
he wrote me. He's one of the most spiritual men I've ever met.
Yeah.
And unsolicited, he gave me a priesthood blessing, and he put it in an email and sent it to me. I didn't ask for it, but I was grateful for it. Well, Celeste stole that email along with hundreds of others, published it, and brought so much heat on him. But it's the blessing that's crazy because it was before all this had happened. And he said, the people who are digging this pit for you.
He said in the blessing, the people that are digging this pit for you are digging it for themselves, basically.
Will end up falling in the pit.
Okay.
And we're seeing that happen right now. Right? We're seeing that happen.
Right.
How thrilled is Celeste right now that the court has ordered her to pay $20,000? I don't think Rasmussen and Mortensen are going to give her that money for that. Maybe they will. We don't know if this is being funded by some other place. Most of this all began, the lawsuits, within a week of me announcing I might be running for Senate. I think I told you I got a phone call from a very recognizable name and said, hey, your alliance with Trump, people in Utah don't like Trump. There's people in Utah who do not want you to run for Senate. And they just put $2 million into an opposition research. And they gave me the name of the op research organization. It's like one of the best. So I had, Ken Krogh. I had Ken Krogh call up them and ask if I could hire them for a potential campaign. It was a ruse because if they were
just to see what they were going to say, right?
There's a conflict.
Yeah.
We can't. Yeah, I had Ken call and try to hire them on a ruse, right? Because to kind of to see if we could collaborate the information. And this opposition group, which I won't say their name because they're also they're known, and they said, sorry, we can't work for Tim Ballard because there's a conflict, which means someone's already hired us to hit him. So I don't know more than that,
Right.
but there's definitely reason to believe that there's money out there, and that I don't know. He gave me the source of the money. He said a lot of it came from the anti-Trump Republican establishment. But this is a $150 billion a year business, and we are disrupting it big time.
I know.
So there's a lot of people out there that want us down. And I just find it so sad that everybody who has come out with negative smears, lies, lawfare, they are accomplices to child trafficking. Their actions are causing children to suffer, to be raped, to be tortured. And that's the truth. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the truth. That's the truth. And I'm talking about everyone who has who has smeared me, who have said things about me that aren't true. And even if they say, well, it could be true, but we're going to just say it anyway. Like, it's on them too. Like, this is bad. This is really, really bad.
Oh yeah.
You know, one of my favorite scriptures, in the movie Sound of Freedom, it's Jim Caviezel says the line, but it wasn't written in the original script. He just ad-libbed it. It was right before we took down Olszewski, who was a real guy, real scene in the cafe. When he gives me the book, I have that book. It's a very, very accurate scene. But I didn't in real life say this, but right before he got arrested, Jim leans over to him and says to him, better that a millstone be hung about your neck and you be tossed to the sea. And the guy playing the pedophile didn't know what to.
He goes, what? What did you say?
He goes, what are you talking about? That was his natural response because it wasn't part of the script.
Right.
But we know where Jesus stands on children being abused. And so I say to everybody who has smeared me, who has said things, even if they knew they might be, everybody who has smeared me, all right, they have to go one day have a talk with that Jesus who has made it clear where he stands. And every single person who has smeared me and used lawfare or PR to protect themselves, they're going to have to answer to that.
That's right.
And I love that line because that's the line that people say to me and my team all the time. I can't believe what you guys do. Like, this last operation was so risky. We were in cartel land. Our entire story of who we are had already been publicized by Sasha and Mortensen and
Oh my gosh.
Rasmussen. And we went right back into cartel land. And that's crazy. I had experts to say, Tim, you got to walk away. I mean, the cases, you've been made. But we went for it anyway. And you know why? Because I believe that line. I believe when Jesus says, I mean, Jesus is speaking. These are like mafia cement shoes, kind of very violent words to say that it's better that a millstone be hung around your neck and you toss to the bottom of the sea. This is the Prince of Peace talking, and he's speaking violence. Okay, but it's righteous. There is such a thing, obviously, as righteous violence.
Righteous indignation.
God himself is saying it. And so I know where he stands on those children. My team knows where he stands. And that's why in spite of all this opposition, we're willing to go in anyway. And,
Amen.
And we're not going to stop. If I have to give my life, we're not going to stop. I asked my wife, I said, hey, we could lose our house very easily. Like, we're on the verge of bankruptcy right now. We have not had the donations that we thought we would have. I'm grateful for those who donated, but my legal bills, it's already over $1 million, and we only raised 50,000. I truly thought more people would.
I know.
I hope more people will see, as these cases are being dismissed, that we need help.
We
We
still
need help.
have it. It's I'm putting it right here, so it should be right here as we're talking. The QR code and the link will be in the descriptions field.
And I'll say this, like, you know, again, I'll repeat this. I've asked my bishop so many times. Such a great guy. I said, should I just go and just lie? Should I go in and falsely confess? He said, don't you ever do that. Doesn't matter what happens, what they say, what they do. And so I've decided I'll go to my grave forever confess. And I hope that Elder Ballard's family is listening to this. And I know you, some of you like family. And I've been wanting to call and tell you, but I'm just trying to keep you out of it. I never used your father's name that way. Ever. I never would. I never did. And I will never confess to something I didn't do. I don't care who accuses me of it.
And that right
them,
there is an innocent man's face. That is an innocent man. If you've ever watched depositions or interrogations, when people talk like that, Tim, they are innocent. When somebody...
I will never confess to something I did not do. I don't care about PR. I don't care, you know, about whatever reason someone justified for doing this to somebody. I will never, ever confess. And I hope the Ballard family out there is listening to me and knows this. I never used your father's name. I loved him like my own father. He loved me like his own son, and you know that. And again, the only solace I have is I know he's up in heaven, and he knows darn well that I never took advantage of his name. It was sacred to me, and I never ever did anything remotely like this. And I would say the most unchristlike thing was, that's ever been done to me was a false statement that came out saying that I betrayed my friendship with Elder Ballard. And again, I have peace in my soul because I know he knows that I didn't, and I know I didn't. And kids are hurt. Kids are getting hurt because of that statement, and it's being passed around. And a lot of people are believing it because it's like, well, they said it. Like, well, they said it because they either believed these women or they didn't want the headline to say Elder Ballard's pimping out girls. But they didn't come to me. They didn't come to me and say, hey, Tim, these women saying that you used Elder Ballard's name, and you never. So let me ask you this. If you're truly looking for truth, I've been an investigator for 20 years. Believe me, if you really want truth, you're going to at least go to the other side and give them a chance. But the truth didn't matter, Troy. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was PR. What mattered was avoid a headline that might say something negative about Elder Ballard. So let's destroy a family. Let's hurt a family. I can't tell you how badly it hurts. Of all the hurt, that statement is the thing that hurts the worst.
Dirty laundry.
I just am grateful I have peace in my soul knowing that I did not do that. I just cannot believe. I can't believe decided whoever it was to go ahead and put out something that they knew that they didn't know. They might have suspected. Maybe the girls are telling the truth, but they knew they didn't know because you can't know something that's not true. So they knew they didn't know, but they went for it anyway. And as a consequence, has put a family who has been faithful to the church from day one and still faithful. I will never betray the church. Never denying my testimony of the Book of Mormon. I will never deny my testimony of Joseph Smith. I will not do those things. I will not. I've had all these offers from these like evangelical churches. Like, dude, you tell this story. You can start your own church. You can have a huge. I'll never do that. This is the Church of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna do that. I know that he knows the truth. I know work. I know the couples rules might sound weird to some people. it doesn't fit anywhere into the the white handbook that says how to to keep the kingdom orderly. There's no section on how to rescue children from sex traffickers.
For those,
I've had to
wait, I want to explain something.
pray and study
The- Let me.
and here's my team. We've had to figure that out on our own. And
Yeah.
I get it. People will just dismiss it, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to publicly say I will never, ever. I don't care who. I don't care. There's not one person on this planet that if they came to me, unless it was God Himself and an angel or something, that says, "Sorry, we need you to lie to protect Elder Ballard's name from defamation." Unless God Himself comes and tells me, I will never, ever confess to something I didn't do, and I did not do that thing.
But by the
All
way,
right, bro.
folks, if you don't know what the White Handbook is, that was on our mission. We had the White Handbook. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think there's lots of white handbooks out there.
Okay.
That different people, leadership in the church have.
Right.
But I've never seen the section on how to infiltrate to rescue God's children who have